Hi Sonja, hi Marisa.
Hello, everyone. Just giving it a few seconds for a few others to join, and then we are good to go.
Till then, is it possible to just write it in the chat box? Where are you joining from? Let's wait
Welcome.
for another 2 3 minutes. Yeah, let's wait for another 1 or 2 minutes and then we start.
Great. Welcome, everyone.
We start.
Yes, please. I think we can start. Welcome, everyone, to today's session on local partnerships, regional open mapping hubs, and citizen-generated data. My name is Nasilele. I will take you through today. I hope you're able to get me clearly and that my network is not interrupting you. I'm logging in from Lusaka, Zambia. I will be co-presenting with my colleague, Sanjana. I'll give her a moment to introduce herself. Sanjana, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone, please?
Sure. Hello everyone. Thank you for joining in. My name is Sanjana. I'm based out of India. Um, I work for Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team, and we work with local partners, nonprofit organizations, communities, and individuals to create, make data accessible for all. And we'll be in this presentation, we'll be speaking to you about how we do this and what's the impact of it, and how open we are for the partnerships, and uh, with the help of this localized data, how do we take how this data impacts everyone at the workplace and their operations. Yeah, thank you. Nasi, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sanjana. So Sanjana and I come from an organization called Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team. We work to ensure that we have a community where we have open data that is created and openly accessible to everyone. My apologies, I've had to switch off my video because it's interrupting my screen. I will switch it on at a later point. So in this talk, we're going to talk briefly about how OpenStreetMap data can be used in the sectors that we work in, and how Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team recently launched regional mapping hubs. And we want to tell you a bit about how these regional mapping hubs are working with the local sectors. We are working with NGOs, civil society, governments, various local partners, how we are working together to create map data, and how these organizations and communities are actually using maps in their work. So before I proceed, I would like to see or to know if you have ever heard of OpenStreetMap, or if you've used it before, if you've used it in your work, or you're familiar with it. Kindly just do a yes or no in the chat for me as we go, so Sanjana and I will be able to know how much you know about us. So in terms of our presentation, we'll talk briefly about us, what we do, our regional mapping hubs, citizen-generated data, and local partnerships, which is what has brought us to this conversation today. And then lastly, we're going to talk about how we can collaborate as various organizations from different sectors. So I'm going to tell you a bit about HOT. It's an NGO. Like I said earlier, we support communities and organizations mapping areas vulnerable to disasters. We make sure that we have data that is used to support humanitarian action and to also support sustainable development across all the different SDGs. You agree with me that most of our locations around the world are vulnerable when it comes to disaster. And most of these remote locations do not have access to services, such as, for example, where are the health services, where is the education services, where is the water, is there water available? And most of these populations are actually at high risk, especially when there's so many disasters going on. And we feel as HOT that some of this open data that we generate can be very useful in times of disaster, and also to support anticipatory action. For example, to help the community to prepare for a disaster, which localities have been hit by a disaster, and so on and so forth. So to be able to do this work, we work on a platform called OpenStreetMap, which is what you're seeing on my screen right now. OpenStreetMap is a free editable map of the world. It's, think about it as a public good, which is a platform that has valuable data that can be used by anybody from any part of the world. And the most important thing about this data is that it is open. So OpenStreetMap is free and open access to use. You're able to not just view the data, but you're able to download it. You're able to incorporate this data in offline analysis. You're able to also incorporate this data in various applications. So as HOT, we work with a number of different actors, open mapping communities, governments, civil society organizations, NGOs, to make sure that we collect this data and put it in OpenStreetMap. And these actors, these local actors, can then use this information to make decisions that can help save and actually improve lives. So that's what we are doing as HOT. Now we're going to quickly talk about how are we doing this. So like I mentioned earlier, most of the localities we're working in are remote, and when you look at them, maybe you zoom to a village in Zambia on OpenStreetMap, or a village in India, whereas my colleague Sanjana is coming from, you find that there's completely no information about that locality in OpenStreetMap. So the first level is what we call level 0, where you know nothing about that community. You don't know where it's located. You don't know how many people are there. You don't know how many buildings. You don't have any data whatsoever that you can use to support actions or to support any key decisions. So we first start with level 0, which is a level where there's completely no data, or no data that can be used, or no data that is available. Then we start to go to level 1. In level 1, we go through a process called remote mapping, where we then start to tag our buildings and our roads in OpenStreetMap. So this data on buildings and roads can provide, for example, population estimates. You're able to see where is the population settled, and you can use this data to navigate, basic navigation, if you want to quickly dash to an area. And we normally do this with support from lots of volunteers around the world, and also with local mapping communities from these host communities. The second stage we go to after we remotely map these buildings in OpenStreetMap and we tag these roads, we then go to a step where we add local knowledge, and that is what we are all discussing today, the concept of localization. We've got this information that we have in OpenStreetMap, but if local knowledge is not added to what we are seeing here, this information is not useful. For example, from this map, you're not really able to tell what's the name of the building, what's the name of the road. So we have an important aspect to this, which is what we're calling localization, where we then add local knowledge to the map. So we work with the local community, they then add this information themselves. They're able to say, this is where my community school is located, this is where my health facility is located. For example, when there's a disaster, they want to know where the health facility is. So this is what happens then. The community tags some of these facilities so that this information can be used, for example, to supply logistics in times of disaster, or it can also be used during a vaccination campaign. For example, you want to be able to know, is there a facility where we can, for example, host or put our vaccines there and then distribute them to the community. So this is the next level, which we call level 2, where we start adding names such as what is the name of the road, what is the name of the facility, what are some of the services that are there in that community, as you can see from this map that I have. And then the last step is where we add additional information, for example, about the type of services. If it's a health facility, do they offer specialized kind of services to the community? What types, how many bed spaces do they have, for example? What are their operating hours? Is there a contact number? All this is information that is very useful when it comes to disaster response. So all these are the main steps that we take when we're trying to add this information in OpenStreetMap using local knowledge. I'm going to talk about our model. So like I mentioned, we work with local people. I'm based in Zambia, and when Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team is implementing a project here, we have people from these local communities work with tools that are very easy to use, local tools, and then they add knowledge to this kind of geospatial information that we're using. So our approach is mainly participatory. We use a participatory approach, community participatory approach, to collect most of this information. And we use very low-tech kind of applications such as ODK, OSM, and we have tools that are very easy and simple to use that are open source, most of all. You don't need to be a geospatial expert to use this tool to, for example, tag a building or to add additional information to the map. So this is what we're doing. And then lastly, there's a very strong component of capacity strengthening, capacity building, where we share knowledge with these local communities, with these local actors, so that they can be able to sustain what we're doing and to be able to continue to map their communities and localities to make sure that as actors from different organizations, we have data that is available for decision making. So what does localization mean to the local community? It means that power is in the hands of the community. For example, on my screen, you can see a health worker, a community health worker in Uganda. Her name is Happy. She's really excited that at the end of the project, we have this map that is given to her. And if she's, for example, sending vaccines to children in her community, she's able to tell where other people settled, and she's able to navigate to those areas. She's able to see where the community is, what are the services in that community, and she's able to make some very informed decisions. So she's really, really excited to have a village map which shows the basic services that they have access to in their village. So this was taken in Kanaba, a sub-county in Uganda, in 2021. So all this information is taken in 2 steps. The first step is remote mapping, the one I said, where you can map from anywhere in the world. You can use a browser, or you can use your mobile phone, and you can draw buildings and roads like it's showing on this screen, where you can tag a building. And then the second stage is where we conduct local mapping with our local communities, and we use a mobile device, and they begin to add additional information. Altogether, these two tools and methodologies combined give us citizen-generated data, which has been validated and ground truthed in one platform. We have achieved a lot in OpenStreetMap. We have lots of volunteers from around the world. We work very closely with Missing Maps, a consortium of number of organizations. We have supported over 100 plus disasters and crises. We have mapped over 136 million buildings, thousands and thousands of points of interest added on the map. We haven't yet covered the entire world, but we are hoping to make sure that we have a world where everyone has been represented on the map. I'm going to hand over to Sanjana. Sanjana will take us through the next session. Over to you, Sanjana. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nasi, for telling us about Humanitarian OpenStreetMapping map team and the approach which we use for localization of data. But how do we do this? So our model involves providing local people with the local tools. Next slide. HOT has set up regional open mapping hubs in Asia Pacific, Eastern and Southern Africa, West and Northern Africa, Latin America, and Caribbean, which will engage with local mapping communities, facilitate knowledge exchanges, distribute funding, provide training and support in order to massively scale local edits to OpenStreetMap in 94 countries. Next slide. So for localization of data, we connect with nonprofit organization, we work with government agencies, we work with young people, local communities, um, because community strengthening is a key focus for us as Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team. And this is an approach we take in all of our hubs across the world, 4 hubs of HOT, by sharing accessible tools and know-how so that communities can lead on mapping what's important to be mapped and how it should be mapped, in and information that should be used in the decision making for by local actors and regional actors. We work with partners so that everyone has accessible to data and is able to share data in OpenStreetMap with the help of tools that has been customized, that has been used by local people, um, and inspire and mobilize open mapping communities, movement, and with the help of different hackathons and mapathons in the ecosystem. Next slide. So we at HOT and Hub, HOT is like as a short form of Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team. We call it HOT. We at HOT and Hubs believe that it's extremely important and crucial to use citizen-generated data through participatory approach to localize data for last mile connectivities, so that no one is left behind and have access to right sources of data, which is a quality one and also being used in the daily lives. So citizen generated data from local partnership is key for achieving a larger impact and taking informed decision for us. Next slide. So now I'll be talking to you mostly about how we are doing it and what are the different programs in the hubs, specifically in Asia Pacific. Find specifically in Asia Pacific hub, what exactly are we doing for mapping activities? One of those program is Booster Grant. In Asia Pacific region, we have worked on Booster grants. Open Mapping Hub provide a small amount grant to the local communities where there is a poor data quality, and we co-design, facilitate mapping and open data projects in the region. And this is done with the help of partners with the communities, with young people across the region. One of the examples from Bangladesh, where the booster grant is provided to the organization named Boyle, and they have been facilitating it with the local partners, and the partners who want the quality data and want to integrate OSM and use data for the decision making and planning and preparedness of their project. We connect them, the mapping activity happens, and this has been significantly useful in mapping and community building work and boost the ongoing activities on the ground. It has also been beneficial because if we give you an example of Asia Pacific hub particularly, we are 12-member team, and we want open mapping community to be sustainable in the hub over here. So partnering with the local partners who can take the ownership of the activities is something we look forward to. um, Next slide. So yeah, the example, the map here which you see is one of the outcome of two of our two of our project, which is Filiware in Philippines and Inaware in Indonesia. This is the data which you see over here has been created with the support of local actors across the sector, be it government agencies, be it non-profit organization, individuals, volunteers, non-profit organizations who have worked together to create this data to support disaster risk management. Um, so if you see the map, this has been like this is if you see the map, in we work with the national government of Philippines and Indonesia closely with USAID and Pacific Disaster Center, and hot to development of the Filiware and Inware systems for the use of national and local disaster managers. These local installers of disasterware system are hazard monitoring and decision support tool that use OSM data as the base map. Other layers on risk, hazard, and vulnerabilities from other national government agencies are added on the platform, for the use of the local actors for disaster preparedness and response. Following the completion of the road and building network in hot tasking manager, which Nasilele also spoke about, remote mapping with the help of volunteers. Local communities and volunteers were trained by us to collect information on critical lifeline structures from the ground. For example, hospitals, evacuation shelters, schools for the 18 municipalities of Pampanga province in Philippines and the cities of Semarang and Surabaya and Jakarta in Indonesia. Can we go to the next slide? So those were two projects which was particularly where you saw the outcome of the map and how it looks after the participatory action together when we do on ground. Would like to take you more in depth about how one of the project, which is Filiware project, which is citizen contribution to disaster risk reduction, so that you have more visibility about how it is done, and and how the data is collected. Um, Before we go ahead, would this specifically for this project, why we begin the project with the belief that disasters begin and end locally. As citizens, we have valuable hyperlocal knowledge of the place we live in and the facilities and infrastructure that exist. By capturing and sharing this local knowledge and making it available for all, citizens can not only make a meaningful difference in the risk reduction and management, but become aware about risk and more resilient in the process and take actions and policies based on it with the help of the data. So next slide. I'll be taking you more I'm just talking now. I'll be taking you more towards how it has been done, and how we actually did the project. So mapping, there were different steps involved while doing this project. One was remote mapping, where volunteers across the world came together to map the areas. Then there was OSM training which was done, and there was also then there was validation which happened, which is also known as field mapping, with the help of with the volunteers from government organizations, with the volunteers from the local organizations, hot team itself. And the map turnover was the last picture, fourth one, which you see is the map, how it turned out after all the activities which took place, which actually took place. So OpenStreetMap is an important base map data source for Filiware. Citizens have contributed to OSM, and they in turn contributed to the data that is available in OCD, distributing the success of Filiware and to the risk reduction and response activities of OCD. So also one thing to one thing which to focus upon again is the government, after this project was conducted, and after The local knowledge was brought into the picture. The local government units, citizens, local communities were able to use the maps to update the disaster risk reduction plan, both for the municipality and village level. They have been using OSM data for the exposure data for analysis, such as impact assessments. Many other agencies, non-profits, and communities are using the data for the resource allocation, so that there is an increase in their adaptive capacity building towards climate change hazards. So yeah, the data is this map data, whatever map data we create with the help of local partners, with the help of local knowledge, is free and open to use. This means that it can continue to be used and improved by organizations and citizens for future decisions. Non-profits, government can use it for advocacy and more, um, and many other areas. So yeah, for us the major agenda was having information available with sharing information among countries disaster managers from national, regional, and local level, with warning alert disseminated to the impact communities. But the data can be used in any sector now. So yeah, in addition to this, we also did field surveys, which also we also remotely mapped roads and buildings. So where the priority areas were selected by OCD, and through and the conversations with the local communities and the partners we were working with, through providing satellite imagery to the mappers in Philippines and globally, we produced updated base map data, roads, building beyond the area of the field survey in few cities. Nearly 1 million buildings in Pampanga and 400,000 in Q Zone city was done. The hot tasking manager is an intuitive tool where all the mappers came together, worked together to map an area in an organized way. This allowed mappers throughout the world to assist in mapping a defined region with a minimum risk of overlapping work areas, so that it also allowed field mappers, the ground mappers, and the people who are working remotely to map, to provide the data, to work very collaboratively and effectively and rapidly, so that there is no rework being done. Now, because Philivia uses OSM as one of their base map, um, we there have been essentially we are seeing more and more modifications, which has also contributed to the system. Next slide. So yeah, these are few of the examples of the data now available in the system. If you can see map key, like critical lifeline infrastructures, where there are police stations, hospitals, church, pharmacy, and other areas which was mapped and is used by local people and everyone on their daily lives. Also non-profits, like non-profits for their non-profits, organizations, companies for their regular workflows. We printed 319 maps during this project. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah. So these are few of the few of the people who wanted to like map that was created free and open. LGU, Minanin, they were like they said they were able to use the maps in updating the disaster risk reduction plan, and also like help them in the budget approval by the mayor. And there is one more testimonial which speaks about how this has been very timely and is using helping them to formulate community based disaster risk management plan. So yeah, these are few of the impact from the ground. Next slide. So another example for us, this is a very recent example. We are working with World Vision Timor-Leste and community groups with respect to improving the quality data in Timor-Leste specifically. So where the World Vision, us, and different social enterprises and communities came together like to create a map which is sustainable and which is also helping them in the improvement of the community. So the project has not only improved the OSM database and the baseline of the map. The idea was how do we improve the baseline of map data in Timor Leste, which will benefit the local community in the country. So that's the outcome. If you go to the next slide, Nasi. after like capacity building, data analysis, field mapping and training, this is what has happened, and it's still in progress. So we have already mapped 47,000 buildings, 35,000 kilometer roads have been mapped, 700 amenities has been done. The project, the local community is formed of the local community who worked on this project is formed of diverse institutions and organizations that supports the sustainability of mapping activity and OSM data use in Timor Leste by working with each other, also sharing learnings and knowledge with each other. Moreover, the community and government have increased awareness and knowledge of OSM, and they have been using for their um, uh, the local knowledge to for the social economic change and generating data for the advocacy. Next slide. So yeah, those were few of the case studies where we have, or the examples of the projects we have been doing with the local partners, with the non-profit organizations and communities. I spoke to you about Booster grant where communities are given some small amount of grant for mapping activities. Um, then there was examples of Olivia project with specifically with all the actors involved, which were individuals, remote mappers, volunteers doing remote mapping, um, students coming into the picture who were supporting in the geospatial data collection, satellite imagery, etc. Field mappers, communities, non-profits, government, and local partners, right? Those were few of the projects we did, but this is one of the very project which is close to most of us. So before we go ahead and I explain you about this program, what do you understand when you hear she leads and she inspires? Would love to see if you can write that in the chat box. What comes to your mind when you hear she leads and she inspires as a statement? We'll take like 30 seconds for you to respond back. If you come across a statement which says she leads and she inspire, what comes to your mind? Sure. Feel free to write women as role models. Thank you. Feel free to write it in the chat box. This is one of the program which is close to us and which is one of the example of our community engagement initiative that are leading to local partnership building in the region. We have set up a program that 6-month training and professional development program to support women to gain open mapping skills, geospatial data skills, and embark on the journeys together, right? We see women as leaders and how do they contribute into the sector in the geospatial world a lot. So that is where the program outline is. Programs participants in this program, we received more than applications from 30 countries. Participants who were the part of the cohort were from 16 countries. And inter-country engagements are also happening with the help of the program, and cross-sectoral engagement. We had women engaging from various sectors, applications from diverse backgrounds such as medicine, agriculture, environment, journalism, geography, etc. The idea was, how do we bring women into the mainframe and provide them an opportunity to introduce mapping into the sectors they work in. So uh, the program was for 6 months, 100 women across Asia Pacific region, different kind of trainings for them. They started building their own project. 10 of the project have been designed by the cohort, have been selected to receive grants and future trainings, and is leading the local partnerships and is led by, and they are one of the community members for us now. One example from one of the project, I would like to give you one example. For example, one of the girl from Telangana, Asia Pacific country, India, she is working on a project on streetlights and maternity ward mapping in Hyderabad, where her objective is the problem statement which says is women, there are 40% of the women in workplace, but how do they have access to a safe travel and accessibility to the medical amenities whenever needed, which is hospital, primary health centers, and maternity ward. So that is where she's working with local communities to map it across Hyderabad. And she like for her the focus is gender sustainability into the mapping and sustainable cities and communities. By this project, we are aiming to have more like women participants, like more women are comfortable going to the workplace with a sense of commute routes in Hyderabad area. Hyderabad will have increased number of map roads in the street light and maternity hospitals and ward. So this is one of the example. We have multiple women working on one of the other like other project which helps to create better data and a quality data, and also impact different sectors as a whole. Few of them are working in education, few of them are working in health, I said, few of them are working in medicine. So yeah, next slide.
I think that's over to me, Sanjana, now. Thank you so much. Lots of interesting projects going on in AP. Really excited to actually chat with the team here and hear some of their thoughts on what Sanjana has presented. So I'm going to give you another use case of people power, where we work with the local community to generate open data for service delivery. So this use case is coming from Zambia. It is a project that was looking at service delivery mapping, focusing on decentralization of services. The main problem was looking at sustainable cities. We have lots of regions where most services are centralized and most of the population in those communities lives in a rural area and they do not have access to some of these services. So we had to work with a number of local authorities, a number of partners, lots of government partners, lots of civil society organizations, so that we collect this information that can then support action. In terms of the data that was collected, we're collecting information on the basic services, that is health, education, water, and sanitation, and so on and so forth. And there's lots of local action, lots of collaboration across networks, lots of collaboration from the government, lots of collaboration from civil society, and lots of NGOs, as well as the communities themselves. So what this project was trying to do was to show the community where are the services located, and to also give them information so that they can then use this information to make decisions. For example, if the community leaders want to decide, maybe World Vision has come to this community, or Humanitarian OpenStreetMap has come to this community and they want to implement a sustainable water project, where do they then do a borehole? So we are giving them these maps or these tools so they can then use them as a decision-making tool to decide, okay, which communities do not have access to some of these things. So this project was really good. Like you can see from the picture, we had youths from the local communities attend some meetings where capacity building was done. They're trained how to collect this information by our local mapping communities. And then thereafter they go in the field. You can see the young lady with the tablet collecting data on different types of things. Is it water, education, health? And all this data was focusing on improved service delivery. So this project is still ongoing. It's currently covering 17 districts in 2 provinces in Zambia, one province called Central, another province called Chinga, and covering about 17 districts. What has been achieved so far? Well, with the support of lots of local actors and volunteers across the world, we have managed to map over 1 million buildings in OpenStreetMap, and then physically map over 30,000 water points. And this is going to be information that will be very, very helpful to the Ministry of Local Government and the Ministry of Water Affairs as they decide which regions or localities have access to some of these services. We have also managed to map over 2,000 education facilities, over 12,000 kilometers of roads have been mapped in OpenStreetMap, and over 1,000 waste points have been added, And also the most important part is the local knowledge which has been transferred into OpenStreetMap, where we now have village names, we have the names of the villages, the names of the communities, the names of these service centers, the names of the roads that have been added to OpenStreetMap. So at the end of the day, the municipality or the local authority, as well as the local leaders, will be provided with a map like this one. Already, some of the communities have already been provided such a map, which shows them where the services are located, and then they can then use this as a decision-making tool to identify regions or in parts of their wards or communities where services are missing. So basically, this is what this project was looking at. I'll take you to another use case where we use OpenStreetMap to support disaster risk management. As you know, we've had so many disasters due to climate change. So we have been using OpenStreetMap as a tool to generate actionable data to support floods. So we have data, for example, on drainage capacity, solid waste disposal, sanitation, services. An example is a project that we implemented called Ramani Huria and Open Cities Africa. So Ramani Huria was implemented in Dar, which is a flood resilient city. And we partnered with a number of local partners, local communities, as well as other partners such as the World Bank, FCDO, GFDR, and so on and so forth, a number of local universities to collect this information. What was the impact of this project? We have data in OpenStreetMap for this particular locality, which looks at, for example, the drainage, the soil, the assets, which is very critical when it comes to disaster, amenities, risk areas, which areas, so what are some of the risk areas, which areas are high risk, which areas are low risk. We have so much information that can be used to support warning systems by these local communities. So this is some of the work we do, and I'll share the link in the chat if you'd like to read more about the Open Cities project or the Ramani Huria and what we did and what we achieved on it. We have a very exciting project that is currently being implemented called Rural Water Access Project in Niger. Currently, water access is a challenge in Niger, and so working with the regional hubs and the local authorities there, as you can see from the pictures, we have been supported by the government as well as other actors. We have been going there to collect lots of geospatial information to support water access. So for example, we've collected information on waste disposal, on water points, which is our key theme. At least over 1,675 water points have been added to the map. And these have been disaggregated by type. Is it a borehole? Is it a protected well? Is it a water tower? Is it a communal tap? And what is the operational status of these water facilities? And most of all, where are these facilities located, which is the most important thing? Location is what helps us to make informed decisions. So basically, these were just some of the examples of what we've been doing, how we've been working with the local actors in Niger, in Zambia, in lots of different regions around the world to make sure that we have citizen-generated data that can be used to make informed decisions and thereby supporting this theme of localization. So as HOTS, maybe in conclusion, I can say that we can work together to support a lot of global challenges. We just picked up a few examples. We normally look at various sectors. We call them impact areas: disasters and climate resilience, public health, gender equality, sustainable cities and communities, displacement and safe migration. So OpenStreetMap is a tool where you can, or a platform where you can find lots of different information across these various sectors. And like we showed in our presentation, we work very closely with local organizations to create free, detailed, up-to-date maps. We work with NGOs, local communities, governments. And at this point, I think I would love to open it up for questions and comments. Thank you so much for your attention, everyone, and for your participation, for following us through. I would love us to take your questions, comments. Sanjana, I don't have access to the chat. Do you
Yeah,
mind
I
reading
think
out the questions for me?
yeah, I think it's okay if you like switch off your sharing as well. There was one question which was basically about when volunteers map road, do they include the condition? They also include the condition of roads, for example, where they have potholes, gravel, etc. Yes, that happens. There are projects in which, when field mapping happens, or and with the help of tools, the mapping, like these kind of like states also we do. There was one more thing. Do you provide any initiatives for volunteer at field level, for example, stipend, transportation, and etc.? We provide booster grants where these for the mapping activities, right, where these costs and other stuff are also included. And communities and volunteers with those open mapping communities, they are free to use the data for mapping activities the way they want. Yeah, Nasi, do you want to add something?
Yes, so we have two modes of mapping. There are times when we have what we call youth mappers. These are youths across universities. So sometimes what they do, they'll just remotely map a locality. And also sometimes we have volunteers. I could just map. We have lots of volunteers who just map without us providing resources to them. They'll map a community where they're working in. And currently another thing that we're going into as hot is where we are working with the local organizations to do what we're calling data imports. So for example, if an NGO or a civil society organization is working in a particular community and they're collecting some information, we are working together to make sure that we import or put that information in OpenStreetMap. Thanks, Sanjana.
Yeah. Also, one thing with respect to like mapping, right? Especially our like main mappers for us are individuals and young people. So we do also have university engagement program where in like we provide a small grant to the universities where clubs do mapping activities and projects based on their communities, which they can decide again on. We provide in the exchange, we also provide them capacity building, knowledge sharing, experts, like conversations with the expert if they need anything very specific, because it's not just us, it's a pool of many experts and non-profit organizations, partners working towards to create data more accessible and provide more and more inputs for the data so that that can be used by them as well. So yeah.
Interesting, Sanjana. And also just to add that the community, we found that working with the local communities, they easily accept this data because they were the ones who collected it themselves. So you find that they easily accept it and they're really excited to use it. They're able to see this is the data that's available. And the goodness with this data is it's open. You're able to integrate it in your other applications. Someone once asked me, are you able to integrate OpenStreetMap data in QGIS, in ArcGIS, or in some other web platform? Yes, we are able to integrate this information. Sanjana, any other questions?
No, I can't see any more, but yeah. Feel free to unmute yourself or type it in the chat box. We have another 10 minutes.
So Sanjana and I, as you are thinking about questions, we'll be happy to hear from you, from your organizations. Are you working on local, are you working with the local community, or are you generating any open geospatial data? Are you free to open it up and share it in OpenStreetMap? Is a conversation that would love to have even beyond this summit to see how can we network. What do you think? We would also like to hear from you. What do you think about this localization model, citizen generated data? Do you think it's something scalable? Do you think that there's opportunities for networking? How can we work together with you from all these different organizations? Sanjana, I see questions are coming.
Have you used Google Map to support this process? This is one of the question.
Yes. So I'll start by saying Google Maps and OpenStreetMap are two different platforms, but we have used AI-generated buildings, maybe from, like we had a project where we were collaborating with Facebook, and we have other projects that we have been working on where we can integrate AI mapping of buildings into OpenStreetMap. So yeah, that is something we are currently actively working on. But then once these buildings and roads have been placed in OpenStreetMap, we still have the other part that has to come in from the local community, which is the knowledge. The community has to tag the roads. What is the status of the roads? They have to say, what kind of building is this? How many people live here, for example? What kind of services are being offered, and so that this can be used to support advanced analysis. So yes,
So
we
yeah,
are working closely with some of this. Over to you, Sanjana. You want to add?
just adding to Nasi's point on that, our idea is how do we make it more and more accessible, right? The local knowledge, how do we localize the data through participatory approach? Um, in OpenStreetMap, individuals have access to update the information, which in other platforms it's not very accessible, and there is no subscribed model or something. There are so many open source technologies, there are so many interconnected technologies, and you want to know about it, just reach out to us. We have been working with social, and we have started a program to support social enterprises so that they can integrate OSM into their workflows, so that it's more and more accessible and they can use it more cost effectively. So yeah, that is how we look at OpenStreetMap and localization of data. There is one question, which is how are you identifying high value data sets in OSM?
Good question. So we have a process where we have been working on revising our data model, and we have consulted heavily with our key stakeholders and lots of partners. For example, HDX, we work very well with them. So we have been analyzing the data that has been downloaded from OpenStreetMap or that has been utilized. From there, we're able to see which data do our partners or stakeholders need and which one do they use. We have also received lots of feedback, for example, on the kind of tags we use, or some data that they think we should be collecting a particular way, or some of the changes. So currently our data team is doing an in-depth review on the data model. It should be shared not so long from now on the website. Yeah, you'll be able to see some of those things. So based on that, we're actually, there'll be such documents to show you, for example, what data is in OpenStreetMap, how does it align to this particular SDG? If you're looking at information on this SDG, how do you locate it and identify it? So basically the process was looking at high value data sets, the data sets that organizations are requesting for to make key decisions in a timely manner. Sanjana, would you like to add?
No, I think you have covered it all. So we also have data quality team, like validation, which we do. So that's adding to that. So yeah,
Very true,
because we
very
want,
true.
yeah, we want data to be very qualitative, and so that the planning which any organization do, it's not just crisis, right? It's about planning for a new resource allocation or new type of project. Be it any companies, be it any non-profit organizations or individual, they should have a qualitative data sets. So yeah.
Fantastic. Then also on disaster resilience, we once had a chat recently with one of the organizations, and they wanted to do a risk assessment. So they wanted to see the status of the buildings, like how many buildings were damaged during a flood, and so on and so forth. So we are working with partners on very interesting projects, more than what Sanjana and I presented here today. I would actually encourage you to go to our website. We'll paste something in Pathable and also in our chat, so you could see what other works and projects we're doing. Really exciting. There's also an interesting project that we want to use OpenStreetMap to measure the progress or to support SDGs. So lots has been spoken about Sustainable Development Goals. Then we are talking with SDSN and GPSDD and other partners who are saying, how can we use OpenStreetMap as a tool to show where the data gaps? So where are the data gaps, but not just ending at the data gaps, but working with local partners, working with organizations to inspire action. how can we make sure that those data gaps are filled with citizen-generated data? So those are some of the interesting conversations that we're currently having with some of our partners. Sanjana?
Yeah, so it's not just disaster or something. Data can be used anywhere. I can use it, non-profits can use it, or any individuals can use. And these are locally created data. So yeah, feel free to use it. Give us feedbacks as well. Um, so
Happy to take
mm,
one or two more questions before getting to the top of the hour, but also just to say
I
a very
see.
big
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah. There
A
is one
very big
question
thank
which
you.
is
There's one
yeah.
question, okay?
Slides will be posted on the session site. Rhoda, do you want to speak about it? Or
Yeah,
or
it's
our IDs are very
usually
simple. It's Sanjana at the rate hotosm.org, Nasilele at the rate hotosm.org. If you want to have a specific conversation, feel free to send us an invite for 30 minutes chat. So yeah.
just to say the slides are usually available within 24 hours. So you'll have to check back on the session page within 24 hours.
Sure. Also, there are only 2, 3 case studies which we like reflected on the presentation. There are other multiple projects happening across the globe. Feel free to reach out to like go to our website, see about different projects that has been landed. Um, that's we have already done or we are still working on. So yeah. Thank you very much. I'm here to learn about and might like to introduce you to my CRS colleague to explore collaboration opportunities. Thanks. Thanks, Sonja. We will get in touch with you. Do add your email ID in the chat box if you're comfortable.
Thank you. Thank you, Cynthia. Amazing feedback from everyone. Thank you, everyone, for attending our session today. It was not going to be exciting if you're not here. So we're really excited and happy that you were here to listen to us and also to ask us questions. So before we get to the top of the hour, I see we just have like a minute or two. Any other last burning question? If not, let's chat on Pathable. Reach out to us on our website. Sanjana, any last remarks before we close today's session?
I think nothing. So yeah, if you are comfortable, we can take a picture because we have 3, 4 minutes. We can just take a. Feel free to open your videos. Otherwise, we can close the call. Yeah, we have just 2 more minutes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. I look forward